A crush that has you screaming inside is waiting for you on Tinder. It starts with a swipe.
When you're using that.
Online dating's a bit of a misnomer. You want to meet people there, but you actually want to get to a date.
Pictures never match the occupation. It's always
what does that mean?
Well, it's always like a gorgeous woman bent over with a finger in her mouth, and I'm like, St. Jude's Children's Hospital, I guess. If you say so.
Time now for our series, First Swipe to First Date.
Number one, and this is the biggest one, you are not dating people on dating apps. You are convincing them to date you. Tell me you haven't done this
really
before.
sick of dating
Download
apps.
one of the
It's
apps.
all
You
the
spend
same
like 6
thing.
hours
You
picking out
swipe,
your
you
pictures. You
match,
ask your friends for good
you don't
pictures
even
of you.
talk,
You look through.
or you do talk, it's meaningless, and then it just like kind of fizzles out.
This analogy for online dating, and I need to share it with you. It is using a dating app is like dumpster diving. You are quite literally wading through trash, trying to look for something worthwhile. Now,
dating apps are everywhere. According to a study by the Pew Research Center, almost half of Americans aged 18 to 29 have downloaded a dating app, and about 30% of all American adults, that's roughly 90 million people, have tried one. Matchmaking on a larger scale, however, isn't anything new. People have been putting personal ads in newspapers for hundreds of years. And even back in the 80s, eligible suitors would submit VHS tapes of themselves for others to view in hopes of them contacting them back.
Hi, my name's Mike, and if you're sitting there watching this tape smoking your cigarette, well, hit the fast forward button, because I don't smoke and I don't like people who do smoke.
I'm not afraid to get sand on my tuxedo if you're not afraid to let the wind mess your hair up a little bit when I take the top down.
What is new is how modern dating apps like Tinder, Bumble, and Hinge rely on machine learning, algorithms, and massive amounts of data to figure out what you like and to keep you swiping. This video essay will philosophically analyze how this swiping is set up for commodification of others and an untrue performance of who we truly are. I also interviewed my friends and peers, Emmett and Macy, who will introduce themselves, to hear directly from college students about their actual experiences, and I hope that provides context for why I decided to do this project.
Hi, I'm Macy. I am a fourth-year psych major and theater minor here at Drexel.
Hello, I am Emmett Portnoy. I am 20 years old, and I am a third-year animation and visual effects major at Westfall at Drexel University.
First, I'll discuss the work of Audre Lorde, Black lesbian poet, author, and feminist. She writes in Uses of the Erotic about the profound distinction between the erotic and the pornographic. She doesn't mean they're literal concepts here, but it's rather more about what they represent. For Lorde, the erotic is not simply about sexuality, it's about a deep, embodied connection to feeling. As she explains, the erotic is not a question only of what we do, it is a question of how acutely and fully we can feel in the doing. The erotic empowers us to recognize our existence more fully, offering a capacity for joy. By contrast, the pornographic is sensation without feeling. In this sense, dating apps embody the pornographic. They reduce human encounter to commodified images and swiping. For example, the premium in-app upgrades to see more people and monetized features underscores this commodification, reminding us that there is still a goal of profit for these dating app companies. Audre Lorde reminds us such capitalist structures rob our work of its erotic value.
I feel like paying for like Tinder Premium would be like almost like insulting. It's like attaching a punching bag to yourself to be like, oh yeah, I paid for Tinder Premium. Like, I don't know if they show it on the profile, probably not. But I would just like point and laugh and I'd be like, you paid for this? And it's an expensive, that's like a Netflix that you're paying to have like a couple more things that you can do on Tinder. I mean, any like experience to capitalize on humanity is bad. But like, we've been capitalizing on love for forever. You buy a $1,000 engagement ring, do an expensive wedding, do a honeymoon. It's just so ingrained at this point.
Lorde also shows how structures within race influence our lives, especially within the search for a partner. In her essay, Age, Race, Class, and Sex, Women Redefining Difference, she discusses the idea of a mythical norm. She says, "Somewhere, on the edge of consciousness, there is what I call a mythical norm, where each one of us, within our hearts, knows that is not me." In America, this norm is usually defined as white, thin, male, young, heterosexual, Christian, and financially secure. It is also within this mythical norm that the trappings of power reside within this society. Those of us who stand outside that power often identify one way in which we are different. We assume that to be the primary cause of all oppression. On dating apps, you can filter by race, which can lead to the enforcement of beauty standards and fetishization of other users.
So, like, I also had this conversation once with this, like, guy. He was, like, really funny and, like, interesting, and he was really, really insecure about being black. And he was talking to me about, like, he was like, oh, because, he built it up as this big thing. He was like, by the way, like, I'm black, like, you know, like, I, like, hope that's okay. Because he, like, on Grindr, you can choose to, like, just omit anything, and he didn't have that, like, on his profile. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. Like, but he was like, oh, I feel like even with other black people, I'm like, they have, like, said things to me where they're like, you, like, no. And I obviously don't know what it's like to be a black person or a black queer person, like, on Grindr or whatever. But he was, like, very deeply insecure about that. And I think about that sometimes where
To connect to the idea of commodification within the pornographic ideal, author Jenny Mae Hurst makes the argument that dating apps are sort of like scrolling on Amazon. Just like how Amazon will recommend you products or have a frequently bought together section, Bumble and Hinge also have a most compatible section, in which they recommend people through their algorithms and their machine learning and collecting lots of data about you. The inherent pornographic setup of apps even persuades users who are trying not to fall into that trap to look at people with this sensationalized view.
Height. I would check. I'm 5'8", so, like, height is, I feel like, more important too if you're tall. Because I would prefer, like, a tall man but a shorter woman, I guess. Not prefer. And now I'm outing myself as superficial for how tall people are.
Well, I noticed that it seemed like it was hard to say that you wanted to look for height.
Yeah, no, and I think that's still, like, it wouldn't be an automatic disqualifier. Like, I still really did put in my best effort into, like, okay, if I'm not going to be physically attracted to you, let's just have a good conversation. Let's just yap, let's just chat.
Mm-hmm. Jean-Paul Sartre, the French existentialist philosopher, also provides context to our modern dating world in his work. He gave us one of philosophy's most famous examples, the waiter at a restaurant. The waiter isn't simply doing his job, he's performing the role of a waiter, convincing himself that he is that role. This is the concept of bad faith, or being inauthentic, the denial of our radical freedom by pretending we are nothing more than a label. When you create a dating profile, you're forced to assign labels to yourself. Your age, your height, your job, your hobbies, if you have kids, your education, I could go on and on. You present a curated version of yourself, a version designed to appear desirable to others. And just like Sartre's waiter, you risk convincing yourself that you are this profile, that you are reducible to these statistics and surface traits.
You're putting on a performance and it's still you, but it's the, like, version of you that you want them to be like, oh, shiny, and, like, swipe on you.
I feel like, you know, and maybe this is naive, I feel like there's still part of me that wants to be like, but that's still me. But it's not like, but if it's still, like, me behind, if it is me, then, or me, then it's behind all these walls of, like, I don't have my face, I don't have my anything that says anything about me except for, you know, my, like, genitalia. and like I have like a funny cat picture as my profile picture, so that sometimes like, hey, the best people I've met have been interested not because of the tag, but because they're like, oh my god, your cat picture is funny.
Online, the first thing you see is the profile, the ego, the objectified self. Sartre reminds us that consciousness is nothingness. It has no fixed essence. We are both the ego because it's part of our lived reality, and yet we are not reducible to it. They might want to perform one thing, but that's not truly who they are.
The weird thing is when I'm talking to them, I feel like I'm like, I take it at face value, but I think that it's definitely true. Or like, not always, but I feel like there's a lot, like when people say certain things and I'm like, okay, like whatever. I actually have like a specific instance of this happening where it was like this guy and I felt like he was like messaging, like he was like saying all these things that I was like, oh my god, like no, like this feels great. And I was like being kind of vulnerable with him and like sharing some stuff, like, and so I met up with him and immediately I was like, I feel like this is not who I was talking to. Maybe there's a part of my brain that's like, this is their fake version, that I take that fake version and that's all I know, so that's their whole self to me.
This is why authenticity online is so difficult. It's also difficult in real life. Sartre warns us that the pursuit of authenticity can collapse into bad faith if it means trying to pin down a true self. And dating apps demand exactly that. They ask us to be authentic through a profile, but the very act of defining ourselves in those static terms denies our freedom to be otherwise. This video isn't meant to scare you away from dating apps, but to encourage you how they embody these structures of commodification and self-deception. By looking through Lord and Sartre, we can recognize what's at stake when desire and identity are filtered through algorithms.